Three, two, one. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Hanging Out with the Carters. We are so honored that you can make it to hang out with us because you have Denise Carter, your host, and
Wills Carter, your co-host.
who just seems to be like having the best time ever on this video feed. You remember every time you move your phone, Wills, it's just kind of any kind of camera action. You are all over the place.
Oh, I'm moving, huh?
Yeah, you were moving. You were moving. Listen, I just wanted to remind everybody Hanging Out with the Carters is a very unique podcast where you get to hang out with Wills and Denise, and we talk about things in our community. We find interesting people in our community, and we just want to know how we can help enhance our community by some of the things that we learn by talking and spending time with some of our guests. But without further ado, first thing I'm going to do is, Wills, how was your week?
My week was great. And now
Awesome.
you want me to elaborate on that, huh?
Nope, not at all, because you just stopped right there.
Hey, well, you had to give me a chance. I had to think of what did I do this week. I barbecued. I went up the hill to Santa Barbara, and here I am.
Okay, well, sounds like great. What was it? Did you have any high-speed chases, Carter?
No, not lately.
Okay, no high-speed chases. All right, well, then I've got one question for you. What was the favorite thing that you did over the weekend?
And I'll revert back to my putting some ribs on the grill. I thought it was wonderful.
Okay, well, sounds like you've got yourself a dinner for tonight then, huh?
Hey, that'll work. Just like Hooked on Phonics.
Okay. Listen, you're listening to Hanging Out with the Carters. We are on our 44th episode and we are so excited. Is it 44, Carter?
45th.
Oh, 45th. He's paying attention, y'all. Listen, I know it's taken us 45 episodes for Wills to engage in the fact that he knows what episode we're on. So let's give him a round of applause.
Oh, why you want to pick on me?
Because it's Pick on Will's Day Monday. That's what day it is.
Oh, okay. I knew it was something strange about this day. I wasn't sure what.
Well, I have to tell you, Will's excited about my day, my week. I had an opportunity to MC for the Ventura County, the Ventura Music Festival, and I was the MC for Otmore Liebert. And he, if you don't know who he is, please take a moment and just close your eyes, put on some of his tunes on YouTube, close your eyes and just enjoy. It was quite the engagement. I have to tell you, he is a five-time Grammy nominee. Otmore brings his signature blend of nouveau, flamenco, Latin rhythms, and acoustic guitar. He's a mastery on the stage. Just being a part of that event was the chef's kiss. I'm so grateful that I had that opportunity.
Absolutely.
Also, I just want to give the music festival a quick little plug. Next month, July 24th, they have the Rising Stars of Colburn School. And on the 25th of July, we got Big Bad Voodoo Daddy.
Voodoo Daddy.
Big Bad Voodoo Daddy. So I just like to
Boy,
share
now
when I
say that
know,
fast.
yes, Big Bad Voodoo Daddy. That's like when you go to Louisiana, you run into a little voodoo.
Yes, they had the little dolls you could poke.
Did you buy one?
No, you feel any pain?
So that lets me know. All right. So next week we'll let you know who else is coming up to the Ventura Music Festival because it was phenomenal. It was sold out. The crowd was, I'm not used to going to a concert where no one gets up and dances. I was feeling that music, and I was so glad that I was on the side of the stage because I could dance and I could move because I was feeling it. Anyway, next up,
Right.
I wanted to remind you that Thursday, July 24th at 7:30, Denise Carter and friends will be on stage at Levity Live, Oxnard. Tickets are $25 plus fees. Go check her out. She's kind of funny.
Yeah,
I've got
yeah.
I've got some amazing comics sharing the stage with me that night. I will be your headliner. We also have Phil Medina. We have Ellis Wynn. Michelle Matasaki, and I've got an 11-year-old girl who is amazing. Her name is
Yeah.
Ira Renee. Go ahead, Wills.
Yeah, I'm saying she's an upcoming rising star. I think she's going to be good at this.
Yes,
I
she's
think she's
on.
going to be really good.
This is her second, I'm sorry, her seventh appearance with me, and she's doing fantastic. I'm really, really excited. She's right now spending her time in Hawaii, and we'll come back to her next week and see what's going on with her.
Absolutely.
So, without further ado, I am so excited and so honored to invite you guys on a trip around the world with Mr. Joel Zwick.
Well done. Well done.
I was
So,
wondering how you were going to do that.
well, I was improvising because it really truly is when you think about this man. The reason why I say a trip around the world because he's now residing in California, but he has been everywhere from here to New York. So I'm excited. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Joel to the program today.
It's a
Yay.
pleasure to be here. Pleasure.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, Joel, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us, our listeners, a little bit of a background about you.
Wow. You know, when you get to be my age, there is no little in the background because essentially,
That's
especially
good.
most of your energy is spent thinking back on the background because there isn't much of a future to look at. There's a great present that must be fulfilled. You have to live in the moment. But the fact is, you had many more moments in the past than you probably will have in the future. So basically, my past is I started out in being brought up in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. Now, Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, was near Coney Island, which would be the most memorable thing that people could remember about that area. And I lived there in that apartment, a three-room apartment at 2939 Ocean Avenue. And I lived there till I was 21 years old, sharing a bed with my brother, who was 5 years younger than me, while my parents lived in a pull-out couch in the living room. My brother believes we were poor. I thought we were kind of like lower middle class. But my brother says, no, no, we were poor. But we always had food and we always had a room and we always, there. But, it took me 21 years to get out of that apartment. I was doing some. And essentially, the rest of my life was a question of two things that I always believed in, and that was somehow connections got me moving, that I never had dreams. I wasn't expecting to become anything. I didn't think about what the potentials would be. I thought at one time the only thing I ever thought about being was I thought I would be a bank teller because bank tellers I thought finished work at 3 o'clock when the bank closed. And therefore you only had to work from 9 to 3. So I'm thinking to myself, now that's a pretty good gig. But anyway, I never got to train for that, go figure. But essentially, other connections moved me along till I eventually wound up in a television, theater, movie career that, like I said, there was no goal for that. I was a funny little kid. I could entertain. I could sing a little. I could dance a little. I could tell jokes a little. I loved getting on stage and playing roles in junior high school. I was Coco in The Mikado. I was Silas Slick in Naughty Marietta. I was the funny lead in the school plays. You wanted some little guy who was kind of funny. I got cast. But
Wow.
essentially, that didn't make you think I wanted to be an actor or anything. That seems like a goof to have in junior high school. But the next connection, this is a biggie that came up, was that in junior high school, along with me in the same shows, by the way, in the Mikado and in Naughty Marietta, was a young girl who wanted to be in the music industry. She was a driven thing. And basically, when we got to Madison High School, James Madison High School, in 1953, rock and roll exploded on the scene. And every high school in Brooklyn had what we called a doo-wop singing group, which was four-part harmony, usually being stolen from people like Fats Domino and important things. But in New York, we had a fairly good ability to hear music from all over. We weren't limited to just country music or just pop music. So basically, the doo-wop sound occurred, and this lady wanted a doo-wop group in Madison High School.
Okay.
And that was four parts. That's a tenor, an alto, a soprano, and a bass. That's how you do doo-wop. And basically, this young girl who was driven to accomplish things, she was the lead singer and wrote all our songs. It turned out that that young girl was Carole King. Now that's
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty bizarre. You have to be born at the right time, at the right place for anything like that to occur. I mean, how many people did not get to sing with Carole King in high school? Many more than me. But essentially, it was a wonderful thing. And eventually we got auditioned for a record for Ahmet Erdogan at Atlantic Records. And Ahmet liked us and he wanted to sign us, but we were only 16. So parents had to sign, and Carol's mother was smarter than everybody else. She knew the talent in our singing group was Carol, and therefore she didn't sign us off as the cosigns, which was the name because we met in math class. She basically went ahead and made Carol independent. Within a year, Carol had signed her own contract with ABC Paramount, where she wrote songs for 10 years, in the Brill Building, selling her songs to the Chiffons and all the great musical acts of that time, Aretha Franklin. I mean, she had some amazing stuff she got done. But anyway, so she let me to somebody else. She wasn't the key to my success because the cosigns died and the chances of my becoming a professional singer were really limited. So at any rate, once the cosigns died, she introduced me to this guy, and this guy happened to gonna direct a play off Broadway called McBird. So I got a chance to become assistant stage manager in McBird, which was done at the Village Gate. Little background about McBird. McBird basically took the play Macbeth and cast Lyndon Johnson as McBird and essentially said in the play that Lyndon Johnson had to be responsible for the death of John F. Kennedy. Well, so this was a major political hoo-ha, and it was really, my phone was tapped for about 6 months.
How did you
Wow.
know your
Yeah,
phone was tapped?
I tried calling and I found that there was a interference on it and checked it out, and they said somebody's listening in on your phone calls. But it was a great company, young people just coming into the scene. There was Cleavon Little, Rue McClanahan, Bill Devane, Stacy Keach, and that's just the beginning of it. But anyway, so I'm the assistant stage manager playing, go for roles, little roles, assistants who show up and say a line and then dance off or something. And so basically, I'm looking at this and I thought, well, maybe I can have a career as an actor. Here I am in an off-Broadway play. And sure enough, as I'm looking at these actors, I'm realizing, holy cow, I can't act. These people are insane. They go places, they find things, they do things that had never occurred to me. And every time I would think there was something that could not succeed, by golly, they elevated it and made it succeed. Well, so the upshot of that was I had a nervous breakdown, realizing, well, there goes acting. That's not going to be my future. So I hid away in my house for about 4 months when somebody called me and said, "Hey, you want to?" Andy Robinson, who played the Scorpio killer in Dirty Harry, that lunatic. But he's not a lunatic. He happens to be a very nice man. So he called me up because he was in McBird also, and he said, "Hey, I'm opening a group at La Mama in New York." Now, if you haven't heard about La Mama, La Mama was created by Ellen Stewart, a what was she from? She was from Louisiana, but she was a Geechee. She spoke French. She was quite a combination of women, but she was brilliant and a driving force. And so we joined La Mama, and La Mama changed our lives, both of us, because La Mama was all about living in the moment and getting into your body, which you don't really get to do much of growing up, unless you're playing ball. But if you're trying to do a discipline, you're behaved and structured. But no, this La Mama told us that get it all through your body. Just you got to live in your body, because if you're in your body, you're in the present. So that's what got me. And Andy wrote a play, Last Chance Saloon. And I got to direct that play. I don't know why I was chosen to direct that play, but I was, and it was a success. It played London on the West End. It took a tour of Europe and
Wow.
basically came back, and I was the director now of the La Mama Plexus Workshop. And basically, I was paid because Ellen was very good about this. $50 a week, no taxes, thank you very much. $50 a week. And basically, that was big bucks. Especially for a very, contained person like myself, I was able to live easily. I'd make myself tuna fish and rice, a huge pot of it on every Sunday, and I'd have it for 6 days, just tuna fish and rice. And then I'd move on and have a Russian meal on
Well,
Sunday.
I got a question. When they realized that your ability to direct and kind of navigate people, because that's what you had to do in order to direct.
That's true.
How did we discover that was your specialty after you had been home for 4 months?
Yeah, I don't know how that was my specialty, but basically, it was one of those lucky, fortuitous things. There was no reason Andy Robinson should have chosen me to direct this play. He had never seen me direct anything. I was just a member of the company with him,
Hmm.
you know? And he somehow, the way he liked the way I thought, I guess, because even to this day, Andy is a very close friend. And I've asked him continuously, what is it that you saw, and Ellen saw too, that made you think I could direct? And he said, I don't know. I just thought you could do it. And sure, and it turned out I could do it, and I was good at it because I could see, I could tell stories, and I could basically let actors be actors. I never got in their way. They could find what they needed to find. I wasn't telling anybody what to do, and that was my big success. And then I package up what all these people were doing into some kind of of a thing that meant something. That would be it. So
Wow.
somehow that became, and once that became a thing, I was teaching this particular style of work, which was formed initially by Jerzy Grotowski at the Polish Lab Theater, and it was the idea of training actors like they're athletes, get them into their bodies, see what they can do, make test them on that level. So basically, that's what I was teaching. And one of my students came into my company in New York, the Lamamba Plexus, and he wrote a musical called Dance with Me. So I got to direct and choreograph. Yes, and choreograph and be
Wow.
in. And be in. I was the third lead in Dance with Me. And we performed this thing, a number for La Mama first. And then we moved down to New Orleans and did it there for a while. And then we moved off Broadway it was actually on Broadway. It was the Mayfair Theater. It was the smallest theater on Broadway. It was 350 seats. The next smallest was 550. So it was really a small theater, but it was considered Broadway. And because it was
Was that
considered, what?
was that the time when people was wearing zoot suits
A
or
little bit of that was happening, yes. I wasn't. Could you imagine? I would have looked like in a zoot suit. But essentially, I saw people in zoot suits, but that's pretty good. So anyway, we did that thing, and I could do it. And oh yeah, I got nominated for Tony as best choreographer of a musical, best choreographer, because I found out they didn't want to give enough credit to a little production from La Mama to nominate me as a director.
Wow.
So now I was a nominated Tony thing, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden I got to direct Summer Stock because people heard about me and I got called into a couple of meetings and I got to direct John Reid and Howard Keel and Christine Andreas. I did three major musicals over a period of time. And then I did another musical, which was one of those shows you do in Las Vegas. And I staged it in Las Vegas. And I came out to visit my friend Greg, the guy who wrote Dance for Me, who had friends that he had in Queens College who got him to California. And I said, I'm going to go visit Greg. So I went off to visit Greg. And I'm watching the rehearsals of this thing. And I'm watching them rehearse. I'm going, huh, pretty sloppy, but okay. And then basically, Greg comes up to me and says, hey, you know something? You should direct sitcom. And I said, I don't direct sitcom. I'm a theater director. And then I realized my other thing is that you've got to take the shot. If you've got a chance to do something, just take the shot. Don't come up with reasons why there'll be a better opportunity if you don't do that. And it's really not about the path that you think you want. You may get there easier by taking the opportunities that come your way and proving to people in those opportunities that you're worth something. So maybe for those people who have a vision and a hope of the future, they think that they're being destroyed by going outside of it. It didn't make a difference to me. I had no road, no route, nothing. I had no idea of success or failure. People wanted me to work. I thought that was great. If the people didn't want me to work, that was fine too. So I decided to do this pilot project with Greg, and it went well enough so that I became a Hollywood director of sitcoms. And at that time, once again, timing, they were starting to realize that these 22-minute plays, which is all they were, could easily be directed by New York-based theater directors. So just at that time, they brought in a few of us out of theater to see if we could translate into the world of sitcom. And I translated pretty well. So I stuck on and had a major career, you know?
But you had
So
no other than stay and live in the moment. That was your thought process to get people to kind of to weave them through the process of whether you were in live theater or sitcom.
Well said. That's well said, by the way. Yeah, that's
Thank
kind of,
you.
thank you. I'm gonna write that down. No,
Yeah,
I'm
write that down. Put that in your
not.
book. What's fascinating to me about you is you never stopped from the
No, no.
time you were in Brooklyn,
Yes, Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, and you never stopped. I think you were so fascinated with the arts because most people don't get into that particular arena. They wish, they hope, but you settled down and set in it.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I was a little entertainer, but I didn't know necessarily that that was going to be a career or something one
Right. But in
reach
those
for.
4 months where you were kind of stagnant, did you dream? Did you write? What did you do in that 4 months that you were kind of
I what I did was I didn't leave my house for 4 months because I was in the middle of a nervous breakdown, but I didn't go to a doctor to find out I was because who can afford one? So basically, I decided that my solution to this problem was going to be to write a poem a day. And
what?
I'd start every day, I'd get up and write a poem. And let me tell you, I just recently, because I read Keith's book and I thought, my God, was that beautiful. And then I
Was it
started to look at my poetry and I realized, oh my God, it is horrible. But at any
I
rate,
I
no.
love Keith's book, and I have a poem that I'm gonna read later on, but I'm trying to get into reading it the way it's supposed to be read because I realized I was having some hiccups every time. I'm like, wait, I need to really understand, put immerse myself in it because it's absolutely beautiful. And
It
my
is.
brother's a poet. My brother looked at the book and said, "Damn, you
Mhm.
met the guy who wrote this?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you see how he weaves these words?" I said, well, I'm going to work on that. I'm going to read it from top to bottom so that I can get that. But my brother's a wordsmith. He's
Oh, great.
I called him a rapper. He said I'm a wordsmith, but he's also a PhD at Northridge. And so
That'll get it done. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Dr.
Yeah.
Cedric Hackett, I'll give you a shout out to that because he helped me understand the assignment, which when you're reading poetry, you have to slow down and really, really, really understand where you are in that moment, and you can't rush through it. So
That's
it was,
right.
you can't rush through it.
Yeah.
So good for
But
you. I
anyway,
can't wait to see what you come up with.
oh God. But anyway, it's pretty bad stuff. Essentially, I don't know what it was. I was just talking. I don't know what I was doing. But at any rate, luckily Andy called me and got me out of that and got me to La Mama. And to show you how tight a person I was, when I went to La Mama and we had all these exercises, I could barely touch my knees bending over. Never mind touch your toes. Touch my knees. I worked for 6 months. At the end of 6 months, we had a party because I showed up and I could touch my toes.
Good,
And that was major. Took me 6 months.
bravo.
And it shows you how tight my body must have been before my experiences at La Mama opened me up. And you can't be you can't be an artist in our world, at least, if you're being contained by parts of your body that simply refuse to function for you. You know, so
Absolutely.
as we get older, we start to run into more of those parts of our body that are not functioning as well as they might have at one point.
Well,
But
speaking of functioning, when you talk about it as you start to get older, is there something you do to keep yourself moving now that you are retired?
Well, yeah. When I retired, I did it for a purpose. The pandemic had hit, and I realized it was time for me to get out of the business and make space, especially for women and also for minorities. Because I
Mm,
had a lot of assistant stage managers, a lot of assistant directors who were black or who were women. And these people needed an opportunity because it looked like they could be really good directors. So I decided I was in the way and got out. But once I got out, I realized I had no structure in my life. My life had been structured from the time I went to kindergarten. I knew exactly where I had to be, when I had to be there. It was all very well planned out. Then all of a sudden, there was nothing.
mm.
There was nothing to do except calling up, having lunch with somebody, or trying to find a way to make a schedule work. And basically, so I took up one of my daughters gave me an Apple Watch as a birthday present. So I'm
Uh-huh.
looking at this thing and I start walking and I start walking. And to this day now, I walk 10 miles a day.
Wow.
10
Wow.
miles a day. But you got to remember, it's a stupid schedule. I'll rethink it. I decided I will do another pass at my life when I turn 85. That I'm going to suffer that whatever I chose to do for up to 85 is going to just have to hold. But anyway, I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And by the time I finish most of my walking, I finish my, because I walk, I have breakfast, then I walk some more, then I brush my teeth, then I take a nap, then I walk some more, then I take another, and basically by the end, and then I have time to go out to lunch with people. I have time to get on Zoom calls, but essentially, and I just walk. And believe me, it's helped my health a lot.
We ought to try
Honest.
that, Wills.
Yeah, we should try that. So you gonna get up at 3?
Um,
I,
yeah,
I,
usually I'm up at 3, but it's usually just going to the bathroom to empty my bladder and
that's exactly,
start
it's a
over.
3 o'clock, Brad. That's the reason that I just stay up at that point.
Wow, that's what, that's phenomenal.
Well,
So so now that you've got this great big career, there had to be something like a turning point that got you to where you left New York and came to California because you've been all over the world.
yeah.
And
Okay.
let's talk about how you got from New York to
To
California.
California? Okay, specifically, it was because of the show I did in New York, the dance in the show that got me the Tony. The Tony got me to direct musicals all over the place. And then I did this one, I'm trying to, what did they call? It was a four-hander. It was, we did it in Las Vegas. It was a review, a musical review. So I was in Las Vegas and I thought, wow, I should go visit my friend Greg, who wrote Dance with Me, the show that I got nominated for the Tony for. I said I'd go visit Greg, and that's when I saw him doing a sitcom, and he thought I should do a sitcom, and I finally auditioned. It was a wonderful audition. It was Judy Copage, who was the head of Paramount at that time. So eventually, everybody said, "Okay, you got to go speak to Judy Copage because she hires, and we can't hire people without her." So I had a meeting with Judy Copage, and the meeting was this. I walked into the meeting and I said, "Listen, I have not directed a sitcom, so I'm not going to stand here and tell you I can direct sitcoms. But I've been watching for 2 weeks now, and in my estimation, a retarded monkey can direct sitcoms." She looked at me, she said, "Excuse me for a second," gets on the phone, calls this guy, Tony Barr, up at CBS, and says, "I got this guy's directing an episode of Busting Loose." And that
Oh
was it.
my God.
She said, "My God, did this guy figure it out? He knows that the job of the director in sitcom is to stay out of the actors' ways and try to just clear up with the writers how the story's being told, or could it be told better, or anything like that." But people liked me, but I was also I remember there was stage directions in Full House, which would be printed in huge black letters with stars all around it saying, "Joel, please stage it this way. We'd love to see it." Because for the most part, I would just take it over and just I visualized whatever they were doing, you know.
Wow.
So
How long did it take you to penetrate through, well, not penetrate through, I think it's to visualize what you saw on paper and what you were going to actually put out there to the actors to let them weave their way
okay,
and be themselves.
okay. Essentially, what it is my I felt that the way somebody did this, somebody else gave me this image which I lived with and loved, and that was he said when you start a piece, you put each actor into their own separate cone. Stay out of their cone. Don't tell
Mm,
them what to do in their cone. Your job is to move the cone around into some kind of a feasible action pattern that you know can be shot. Then,
mm.
at some point, if the actor feels they need to speak to you, they can come out of their cone and engage with you. And at that point, you and the actor can talk. Oh, no, you don't have to sit at the table. If you think it's better for you to go get a cup of coffee, I think it's a great idea. And you start to evolve a little bit more of the staging pattern once the actors knew what they were doing, once the actors knew the script and knew the basic staging. Now, as the show grows on, the actors know the staging because it's the same staging in every episode. They sit on the couch, they cross to the table, they have their own seats at the table. I mean, 90% of it is a pattern that we all live with. And so but it's not difficult to figure out how the thing moves in terms of space. But the key to my success was yes, I was fast because I lived in the moment, but I was also a systems person. For some reason, I was good at seeing a system and saying, you know something, this system could be made more efficient. We're wasting time. We're wasting time, and actors don't need to have. I mean, when I did Laverne and Shirley, Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams did not need extensive rehearsal to play those two characters. They'd been playing those characters for 2 years when I got there. So basically, they loved me. We went through it once. Matter of fact, Penny did one thing that taught me a lesson. We're about to do a scene, and the girls are late. So Kenny wants to move through the scene. She says, "Okay, Joe, give me a second." I said, "Fine." She says, "Okay." So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick up my coat and I'll put my coat here. I'm gonna pick up my bag and put in my bag there. And then crossing to the kitchen, I'm gonna get myself a milk and Pepsi. I'm gonna take the milk and Pepsi, I'm gonna take 2 sips. I'm gonna leave it on the counter. I'm gonna pick up my coat, pick up my bag, and out the door. And
Oh
that was the
my God.
staging for that scene. That was the staging for that scene. She had figured out, and she always managed to hold for where there might be a laugh, and then walk to the next location or the next activity on the laugh, and kept going. And Cindy would stay right with her on it, and I realized, oh my God, what a lesson I just learned. What,
Dang.
because, but the key was the system. A lot of people rehearse the actors before their run-throughs 4 or 5 times, beating any life out of their performance at that point. So I basically, with that, I do it once, and I'd say, okay, you're going to do it in front of the, this is your run-through stuff. You better be ready.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting. I had an opportunity to take a acting class because I did kind of they have these showcases, and they said, well, you want to be something serious, something funny, something this. And
Hmm.
so I pretended to be my daughter who had to put her dog down to cancer. I pretended to be my husband and someone tried to steal a seat in the casino. I pretended then to be Della Reese from Harlem
Nice.
Heights. And I brought down the house because I said, I'm gonna kick your ass. You saying my hoes is thieves? You saying I'm gonna kick your ass quick. And I did this whole thing, brought down the place. And at that day, one of the judges granted me acting classes. Her name was Gail Bean, and I'll never forget it. And I took classes for about 9 months, and it was driving to LA from 7 to 10, sometimes getting out at 11 o'clock, and then driving back a couple
That's
times a
tough.
week. It was
Yeah.
tough, but I was very glad I got some really good uh, acting books. That one was How to Become Famous in Your Own Town. I think that's what it was. We're
Hmm.
in Hollywood, but it taught me some of the verbiage that I didn't know, like
Oh,
flick.
okay.
Like I didn't know. I still don't really know. I just try to do what I can, but I'm
Hmm.
excited, about what I'm doing. But to sit here and talk to you about some of the most amazing shows and sitcom that you directed, let's just drop a few. I know you said Laverne and Shirley.
Laverne and Shirley was my first. Then I went on to a little thing called Mork and Mindy with Robin Williams. That was a workout. My God. But he was the nicest man. Truly was the nicest man. My wife, who was a shrink, honestly believed during that period of time that he was a depressed human being, which is
Mm,
what we found out much later. And that basically he had two emotions. Either he was depressed or he'd be explosive. And
wow.
once he was exploded, you couldn't do much about it. And then I did Bosom Buddies with Tom Hanks. Then I went on to Webster with
Oh,
Emmanuel Lewis, and then I went
wow.
on. Then I went on to, I think it was Full House, Family Matters, Step by Step. And now the big question is, I did a show called Hanging with Mr. Cooper. Did you steal your title from that show?
You know what? I did not stand up, but I opened up for a Mark
Mark Curry.
Curry. I opened up for him at Levity Live about a year ago, and it was just a fluke. They called and said, "Hey, we need a female. He wants a female. Can you be here in 10 minutes?" And I was like, "Yes." And my friends are like, "Where are you going in 10 minutes?" And I ran out the door. Bye. And I got there, and it was the greatest to sit down with him.
Somebody's trying to get in on us.
I don't know what happened. My uh,
Is your phone trying to talk to you?
My phone might have been trying to talk to me, but I thought I
Okay.
turned it off. But
All right.
anyway, Mark Curry was great. How did you like hanging out with? First of all, how did you get that? Did you guys? Did someone? How did you get that opportunity?
You know something? I don't really remember. Hanging with Mr. Cooper, it was part, it was, I think it was was it a Warner Brothers or a Paramount show? And I was pretty big on those lots. I spent 9 years on Paramount and like 7 years on the Warner Brothers lot. So it's possible that I was just actively directing pilots. And when this one came along, Hanging with Mr. Cooper, I got a chance to direct it because I had a very good record at that particular point with shows or pilots that I directed making it to series. And that one made it to series. And Mark was a funny guy because he was a basketball player, 6'5", 6'6" maybe, with skills on the college level, but he couldn't compete beyond that. But he was a funny, strange man because he he basically he's a goofball. Which was completely different than anything I'd been directing in terms of style of acting. But I enjoyed that. Just recently, one of the things you can gain from having everything on the internet is I can see virtually everything I ever directed.
Wow.
And that's mind blowing because normally you have a career. You don't have your career so that you can substantiate everything you did in a video that exists. I mean, that's just crazy. So I've been watching some Hanging with Mr. Cooper's. And I liked the show. It was a good show. I know that we got rid of one lady after 2 seasons because I don't remember why, except it had to be because she was hard to deal with because talent was not the problem. Then we got another lady who I think was even funnier, and then we brought in Raven Simone, who I've worked with about 14 times. I mean, Raven Simone of that generation was the queen actress. If she was a voiceover for me in Fat Albert. I mean, I used her every chance I could.
Oh my God, Fat Albert. I mean, that was that we watched Fat Albert every Saturday morning.
Oh yeah, on the cartoons, sure.
Yes, the cat, the on the cartoons, and it was just great. I remember that growing up. I remember that growing up. That was a staple.
Yeah, no. It ran for 17 years, I believe. That particular thing did. So, no, I'm afraid I did the movie, which actually was pretty good, but the timing was pretty bad.
Right.
Uh, because basically Cosby hadn't gotten into his real trouble yet. This was something else he concocted. That he had made a statement before the movie came out that the problem is with black fathers. They're not staying in the family. And when he went and made that statement, he lost an enormous amount of his population we expected to see Fat Albert, you know?
Yeah, people didn't like that statement. I remember that because they were thinking, who are you to depict what you think the black family looks like? Because you hadn't had to live that.
That's
You
exactly right. He never
you
lived
hadn't
that.
lived that. That's not all it was for you. But it was ironic that, eventually with all the things he had going on around him, his before the trouble, his son passed away. I mean, it was tragic.
Oh, yes,
So
yes.
he was I believe he was changing a tire
That's
in the
right. And
middle
got
of the
hit.
night. And I
Uh-huh.
said, what are the odds that this man talks about family, his son gets killed, and just so much turmoil around everything. And it's just, they say uh, history repeats itself or karma, whatever it is.
Hmm.
But a very interesting chain of events that happened to him in his lifestyle with his family. Just interesting.
Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sorry. I enjoyed working with him. I found him to be a nice guy, but obviously there were aspects of Bill Cosby that I was not seeing on the
Mhm.
set of Fat Albert, which are the ones that start to get him into trouble in the latter part of his life. But what can I tell you? But that was
I
a better movie than it deserved better than it got
got
because the
it.
timing really was bad for that movie. But
So, are there any other movies that you think that were like some of your favorite? I know of one I can think of that were somehow you end up directing this movie and it just was explosive at the box office.
oh, my big fat Greek wedding, yes.
Yes.
But you see, that's connections too. Going back to connections, you got to remember that when I did Bosom Buddies, I brought in from New York a young 21-year-old actor named Tom Hanks to play one of the leads, and we had somebody else in the other lead, and we didn't like the other person, so we fired that person, and now we had to come up with somebody to replace that person, or we were going to lose that show. Now,
Mm,
Tom was not made aware of this. However, I came up with an actor that I'd worked with, Peter Scolari, and I said, I think, just as a gamble, I think Peter Scolari and Tom Hanks would match up pretty well together. And they said, nah, please, let's just cancel the show and forget it. I said, wait, don't cancel. Give me a chance. I'll get Peter Scolari to show up tomorrow morning, and I will put on its feet 3 scenes with Tom Hanks. You show up at noon, I will show you these 3 scenes, and you can tell me at that point whether we're canceling or we can continue and stay in rehearsal. And I said, either way, Peter Scolari, we stay in rehearsal, you're gonna have to figure out a way to pay him. But if you're canceling us, he goes, no money. So it turned out that they jumped at it and they thought that was brilliant. I never touched those three scenes again. Those guys really had a sense of who they were together that was pretty damn amazing. And so I'm just proud that, but anyway, I had a nice relationship with Tom Hanks, to say
That's
the least,
fantastic.
because
He
we were
seems
raised,
like a
yeah.
really nice man.
He is a nice man, and he stays a nice man. But it's part of my beliefs is that if you come in nice, you come out nice. If you
Mm.
come in an asshole, it doesn't make a difference how much money you make, you still wind up an asshole at the end of all that work. But
Words to live by.
words,
Oh, there he is. I didn't know where he was, but
oh,
he's
and every
there.
once in a while, once in a while. But yeah, but so basically, so I was getting out of TV during the time I was talking about wanting to get out, give space to the other people. So
Mhm.
I'm talking to, so I'm writing to Tom and I'm sending him a script of a film and I want him to look at for me. So he calls me up. He says, "What's this all about?" So I said, "Well, Tom, I'm not happy with the TV career. It's starting to flatten out. It's starting to actually dip down." Because producers were getting more power because they could see images on screens that they couldn't see before. They were now privy to all kinds of. So basically, I said, so I'm gonna just see if I can maybe do comedy. It would be fine. He says, well, I like the script, and he gave me notes on the script. He paid some dues to that. He said, but I got a script I want you to direct. I said, oh, that'd be great, Tom. He says, can I send it to you? He said, sure. Sir. My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and that was it. He said I was directing it. It wasn't a question of meetings. It wasn't a question of anything. He said, this is a movie I want you to direct.
Damn.
And when asked about it, Tom, he said two things. Zwick knows how to tell a story, and Zwick knows how to shoot a joke. And if you can do those two things, if you can shoot a story and shoot a joke, I'm taking a gamble on him. So we both,
Wow,
we
that is
both,
that, those are great nuggets for anyone who's actually ambitious enough to get into this business. If they know
mhm.
how to shoot a joke and they know how to tell a story, that's
You're in
it.
good shape. Yeah, that's the
That's
beginning
it.
state. That's the beginning. That's absolutely right. And so basically that was pretty good. And then I got to spend some time. I did Fat Albert. I did Elvis Has Left the Building, which was another. It could have been a better. It was with Kim Basinger.
Mm,
Kim Basinger and
love
Elvis
her.
Has Left the Building. Very sweet lady, by the way. And then there was one. I did one with John Larroquette and Bronson Pinchot called what the hell is it? I don't know what the hell it's called anymore. But anyway, he was a mystic. He was well, you can imagine with Bronson Pinchot, he was a nut job. He could see the future, he could see the past, whatever he could do, he could do. You know, and could have an accent. He could always do an accent. Bronson Pinchot could do an accent.
I
So anyway,
love that. What recommendations would you have for anyone who's starting off in this business that you had a career in? I mean, is there any recommendations you would give a young, aspiring artist, director, producer? What would you suggest they do?
well, the strongest position in town, if you've got anything or desire, is writing.
Mm,
Writing you can control. You may not be able to sell everything you write, but you can keep writing. Directors need to be hired to direct. Actors need to be hired to act. Or they have to go someplace where they're taking classes and they're paying for the opportunity to get on stage and act a
mm,
scene here, a scene there. But for the most part, the only people who have power in our town are the people who can put a pen to paper and write. And if
mm,
the genre writings, there are people who can write horror, there are people who can write romance, there are people who can write all kinds of different things, people who can write sitcom,
mm.
who like that kind of genre. And if you can do that, I say write, because somewhere along the way, one of these writes will turn out right, and you may get a career out of it. But that's your power. You got nothing else. There's no place else you can prove to anybody.
So now, like in our climate today, 2025, we got a lot going on. Hollywood is not as glamorous as it used to be, right? So
Correct?
there's so many other projects that are being filmed in like England and out of the
Hmm.
country. Tyler Perry, look at him. He's built
Yeah.
his own studio. It's like Hollywood said no, so I'm going to bring my studio to Georgia. And there's so many things being built on this platform or this land that he created. And it's
Yep.
kind of
Yep.
interesting how he took that concept of Madeir from
Yes.
the stage to the TV, and then to the big screen, and
Hmm.
then now all of a sudden he was involved with the OWN network, And next thing you know, he had a couple of great, I call them soap operas, nighttime soap operas, and they exploded. I mean, I found myself going home. What was that movie, Wills, that he did on OWN? You
Oh, the
watched it,
haves and the haves
the
not.
haves and the have-nots. And let me tell you,
Hmm.
right now in this climate we're in, we're looking at the haves and the have-nots.
I know
Um,
we are. Yeah,
and there's so many things that are going on that are changing the way we do business in this industry. And
very much
so
so.
I believe my question, if I can remember where I was going with this, is where I mean, where do you think Hollywood? I mean, where we are, everything is so expensive, and to do business in California because it's so expensive, even to house
Hmm.
somebody, and more people are looking at ways to kind of make their dollar stretch. What do you think is going on with this climate we're in California in the business?
Well, I know right now they're trying to create more money so that they can give money for productions to stay in Hollywood, but they're very late. They
Mm,
blew the opportunity because it should have been done years ago. When I did Elvis Has Left the Building,
mm,
shot that in Albuquerque, New Mexico, because it was much cheaper to shoot. And basically, there were people who were working out of Santa Fe. There was a DP up there. There were a couple of camera operators up there. There were people that already moved to that area. So I got the best of it who existed in that area to make my little movie. But the
mm.
fact was that state, New Mexico, besides everything else, they put in $7.5 million into that movie.
Dang.
$7.5 million. And because it was a $15 million budget. So we made the movie and it didn't do that well. And I remember one day I was at a hotel and I was crossing out of the lobby when all of a sudden I see the guy who was the governor, Richardson, who was the governor of New Mexico. And I went up to him and said, Jesus, listen, I'm so sorry about the fact that the movie, didn't do very well. He said, Are you kidding? It did great for us. It opened up our entire market. After you, we had movie after movie after movie being
Wow.
shot in New Mexico because it was the beginning of realizing that and people, you can take camera operate, but as it turns out now, we're finding out that there are people all over the place who no longer have to move to Hollywood, who have the skills, who are in Detroit, who are in Chicago, certainly in New York and Atlanta, big in Atlanta, New Mexico, Arizona. I mean, they're all players now, plus England and the countries out. It's unbelievable. And with the internet, people out of podunk somehow can find their way into this industry, which couldn't happen if you didn't live in New York or California in my heyday. There was no, and maybe Chicago. There was no way that you were getting into the entertainment industry
Mm,
because it was all nepotism. Who did you know? Who did you know? Your family wasn't in this business, you
mm-mm.
know?
But I think now you look at when you talk about nepotism. I remember Molly Cyrus, right? She
Oh,
got her
sure.
father was in a band, had his own
Very
band.
much so.
Next thing you know, she's the Disney. I
The
think it was
Queen of
Disney,
Disney, yeah.
Queen of
Base
Disney. And then she grew up, right? And
Big
now
fast.
she is a wild child, and she is doing things and saying things that nobody expected, right? So you
Now,
look at
Miley
her
was
now.
a, I worked with her father, believe it or not, her father played a critical role for me in the show about Elvis Has Left the Building. He played Kim Basinger's father.
Mm,
And I remember when I went to him to see him on the Miley Cyrus set once, he was there because I cut him out of the movie. I said, Believe me, you're much happier that you're you're not in that movie. And it wasn't because of how you performed, it was
right,
because those scenes had no business being in the movie.
got it.
So I got to meet them and Miley at the time because Miley auditioned for that movie when she was a 10-year-old girl, but she wasn't appropriate. I wanted a blonde to play the young Kim Basinger.
Right.
Uh, and now we've got Sabrina Carpenter. I
Yes.
directed her for 6 years on Girl Meets World. It's like 3 years. Girl Meets World. And you know something? The one thing I knew about Sabrina was that she was by far the best actor on that set.
Dang.
She was a damn good actor. And she sang, she had a little bit of singing, she did, but we did not feature her singing the way the Miley Cyrus got brought up. So therefore, Miley Cyrus got a big deal with Disney, who demanded that she sign with Disney. Disney wasn't even aware that Sabrina Carpenter had a talent. And so basically, she went off and started to build her own character thing and became huge. She's huge. I mean, so That's pretty fun. So every time I take a look at an old episode of Girl Meets World, I go, God damn. But she could act. She could really act.
I know when you were talking, we had spoke about Robin Williams and his co uh, partner there, his partner in crime, Mork and Mindy, and she laughed and laughed and laughed,
Oh, that
and
story, yeah.
yeah, tell me that
Well,
story, share that. That was
it,
beautiful.
it's in the same vein as anything else. So I'm directing, I think it's now the second episode of Mork and Mindy. And at some point, Pam Dauber comes up to me and says, I don't know what to do. He's making me laugh. I'm cracking up all the time. I said, maybe your character finds him funny. And she said, thank you. Thank you. Yes, my character can find him funny. It's not Pam Dauber cracking up. It's my character. Mindy's cracking up. Mindy finds him hysterically funny, which for the point is, I don't know how you continue to play a scene with Robin Williams without losing it. As who did on the Carol Burnett show, every time Harvey Korman couldn't keep a straight face anytime
Oh
he had
yeah,
to
I
do it.
remember that.
Oh yeah, he could anytime he had to do a scene with I can't remember his name. I like him so much that I don't remember his name. Really makes me unhappy. But at any rate, that was the same thing. Harvey Korman just built it as part of the character. He would go to pieces, but he was Harvey Korman going to pieces. He wasn't the character he was playing going to pieces.
That is funny. I
Yeah.
know that
So
you
how
had
is
direct,
AI affecting the movie business now?
Well, the big problem with AI is, first of all, it generates scripts that need to be reworked because they're not quite ready yet. They're not ready for primetime TV. And the other thing is, of course, the fear is that they're duplicating actors because they can AI project. You could be an AI. Matter of fact, you may very well be an AI
I may
representative.
be an
That's
ABA.
right. We don't know for sure. And that's the problem is you wouldn't know for sure. And yes, so they could basically steal your voice. They can steal your image. They can put it out
Wow.
there and make it sound like they're speaking when you've done it all. You built their voices out of AI and you've built their image out of AI, and that's what's driving actors and extras crazy of how to protect themselves, from being abused that way. So
That's very interesting. I mean, I'm just getting started in this business. I do some comedy. I'm doing some acting. Matter of fact, pulled Wills into to be in a little clip if he gets out of his own way and he allows himself to just live in the moment. He might be pretty damn good at
Yeah, I
it.
hear you. I hear you.
Well, he's a
um,
type. Wills is a beautiful type. As a physical type, I could see why somebody would say, "Oh, I hope he can act because he looks good."
well, Wills used to be into martial arts, so he was
Ah,
real
ah, ah.
disciplined,
Ooh, ooh, ooh. So you don't
right?
want me to, I shouldn't say anything bad about Wills, in other words, is what you're saying.
There you go. There
He's
you go.
the man's a danger. Okay, I like that.
He liked what was it, Taekwondo, and there was another name I can't think of it.
Yeah, and that was I did a little Kempo too, kickboxing basically.
Aha.
So
Wow.
that there's his strengths. His strengths are to stay focused and listen and be ready to pull the trigger when
Pound.
it's time.
If necessary to be pound, he will pound. No, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I like that. I did Tai Chi for a couple of years.
Oh,
Oh
that's
yeah.
you can.
If that's it. You're doing it. There's your Tai Chi, which is a kind of a meditative art form that I think is totally defensive. There's virtually nothing you can do in Tai Chi that's offensive. The theory is you could take the energy of somebody coming at you and you can spend it off to a side. So they're no longer be coming at you by simple movement of the arms. That's what Tai Chi was all about. But
I love it. I
Yeah, I
love
had
it.
a class at the college once, and it was the first day of class. So I had on my new shirt and think I'm looking good. I went to that class and they flipped me out of my new shirt.
And
Flipped
there it
you out
has
of
it.
the
His
new
his
shirt.
his very exciting martial arts class. I know we talked about um things that you're doing now. Um, you are reading scripts, yes,
I
and
help.
you help.
There's a number of writers who I believe in, and basically, I help them tighten scripts, strengthening strips, focus scripts more than anything else,
Mm,
in the hopes that you can sell. But it's not an easy market to sell, and it's not an easy if you're an older writer. The
mm.
industry really is not interested in you at a certain point, and it becomes really apparent that. And the funny thing about it is, there's certainly a lot of projects that are being done for older people, but even then, older is older. But then once you pass about once you get into your 70s, you're starting to, it's really tough. In your 80s, you are a forgotten person. I mean, unless you happen to be somebody who is so massive, so big,
What
so
Betty? Um, oh my God, Betty, she was amazing. A comedian, actress Betty. It's not Betty Davis.
yeah,
She
but Betty did.
no, it was Betty. She was in oh my Lord. She was a comedian. She did a lot of sitcoms. She was funny.
You
Betty.
talking about Betty White or
Yes, thank you.
Oh, well, sure.
Yeah,
Hello.
now you talk about someone who's taken her career all the way to the end. That woman was
Pulled it
sharp.
off. She could do it. She could do it as an actress, but I don't know that if she was trying to be a director, a producer, or a writer, she could have pulled that off. But she was so specific as to what she did and so good at it. And
Yes.
if you wanted that, you hired Betty White and stayed out of her way.
You know what? I love that. Um, Busty Loose. I just had Busty Loose. Was that with Richard
Adam
Pryor?
Arkin, Adam Arkin, which was
Adam.
Alan Arkin's son,
Okay.
and it was my friend Greg Antonacci with Annie Potts, who at
Annie
that
Potts.
time he was living with, and Annie's built she's a talented lady, and she built a phenomenal career for herself. I mean, with young Sheldon, she's the grandmother on young Sheldon, and that's been going on for 7, 8.
Isn't that
I mean,
something?
she
Something.
was a really sweet lady and very, very talented. Matter of fact, when I did Elvis Has Left the Building, Kim Basinger asked for two things. She says, "I want you to please get Annie Potts to be my best friend in that movie," because she knew that I directed Annie. So, and she said the other thing is that please, if you can get whoever did the male lead in Greek Wedding, John Corbett. And she
Yes.
said, if you can get John Corbett to play opposite me, that would be. So I got Corbett for her. And Corbett was a funny story because I called up John and said, John, Kim Basinger really wants you to do this movie with her. And he says, oh, are you kidding? That's great. I'm going to do it. And then we find out that his agent Gabe reamed him out big time. How could you tell them you're going to do it? I can't negotiate now. You've already told them you're going to do it.
No, that's got to be really difficult when you start to look at the talent that you put together to negotiate. And back then, it was probably easier than it is now.
Yeah, I think
You know,
so,
because
probably.
yeah, because there's so many people that talk to each other. I know one of the other actresses we spoke about was Zenaida, who's
Yes.
blowing up.
You mean Zendaya? Zendaya.
Zendaya, Zendaya,
Yeah,
yes.
and you know something? I started Zendaya when she was about 14 or something like that, maybe, and finished with her and Casey Undercover when she was 21 and already
Mm.
had done Dune and had already done Spider-Man, and she had already starting to build her film career, but she had it. You knew she had it, helped by the fact that she was 5'11", gorgeous, could sing and could really dance. Could really dance. When we did Shake It Up, I mean, everybody's working on these dances. She'd look at them once and be able to do it just like that. She was that
Damn.
good at it. But the fact that she had wonderful parents who basically made sure that she played the game right and she played the game honestly and it paid off for her. She's a wonderful person. You know, I hope she is today too. I haven't been able to contact with her for a while, but I hope the industry has kept her. She's still honest and pure. But I believe that like I said, I don't think success changes you. Because I know they asked her once, they said, well, how do you do this? How do you go from a model to a singer to a performer on movies? How do you do that? She says, I act it. If I have to act a model, I can act a model. If I have to behave like a singer, I can behave like a singer. It's the same thing that I had with Barry Manilow. I went to see Barry Manilow win an award. And since he's a Brooklyn kid, at the end of the award, we schmoozed over his Lafayette High School and my Madison High School, and we were better than you, and you, blah, 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 blah. So, at any rate, I have nothing to do with this. 3 months later, out of the blue, I get a call from Barry Manilow. That's heavy stuff. And I get, Barry Manilow, what the hell is happening? He says, listen, I'm doing this album with Bette Midler about Rosemary Clooney and all her songs. And Bette is refusing to do a couple of songs for me because she has a 16-year-old daughter and she doesn't think it's appropriate. He says, what can I do? So I did the same thing. I said, just tell Bette. She just got nominated for an Academy Award. Just tell her to act the songs. And he
Ah,
did. And she said, oh, that's simple. Of course I can act them. She was taking it as a personal statement that somehow she wants to tell her daughter, come on to my house. We're going to make candy. Please, you know. Those are little saucy songs that Rosemary did, who was the aunt, by the way, of George Clooney. Must be
oh my
said.
gosh.
Must be
Wow.
said that Rosemary Clooney was George's aunt.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, I like to ask a couple more questions before we let you go.
Okay.
What are you, I know, I like to ask what's your superpower and what's your kryptonite?
Okay. My superpower is efficiency. A structure person. I can see structure and tighten it and clean it up and make it work better. My my Achilles heel is anger. I could explode. It was always little things. Little things made me explode. Big things you had to deal with. If something big was going on, you didn't have time to explode. You just had to dig in and get the job done. But if somebody did something little stupid, that's what they that's when I would explode on it, you know. But yeah, so that was it. But I got better and better at that, you know. The industry doesn't really like people exploding too much, so I got basically. But Zendaya used to think my explosions were the funniest things that happened on those sets. She used to crack her up.
Oh, when somebody's laughing at you exploding, how do you take that?
I'm fine. I have no problem.
Uh,
I'm busy exploding. I'm not paying attention to what people's reactions are to my explosions.
oh my God, that is so funny. So we know how you take care of yourself, but what are you passionate about now? What's your passion?
Family, 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 family. I got big family. Candace, who is my third and best wife by far, she's a therapist, a shrinko, and basically she came to me with a huge family, and so now in between us and them, there are five children, and there are five grandchildren and four children. And the grandchildren range in age from a 16-and-a-half-year-old boy who lives with his 14-year-old sister in San Francisco, or in Oakland, actually, and a 2.5-year-old girl who's the baby of the family, and of course, the heartthrob of the whole family.
Of
You know,
course.
eating up everybody. She takes over, just controls the space. You know, as a matter of fact, I'm a little frightened because I think I see a little too much of me in her. I mean, I do have 1/4 representation who that child is. You know, my son, who I get half of my son, he produced that. So somewhere I got about a quarter of that little girl in me. And I think that's the nutty part of that little girl. But she's cute and she's adorable. We like her. We like
I
her a
love,
lot.
I love it. Will, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think you pretty much cover it all. It's been a pleasure for sure.
Well,
Oh, I've had a good time,
I
you
know
know.
this is fantastic. I've got to read an excerpt from the book of
Okay.
The Prince of the Garden.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm excited about this. Keith Richmond, just a great, all around great guy. Wills and I had the pleasure of meeting his wife this Friday. So it was
Kathleen,
great to
yeah.
meet Kathleen. Very, very nice. So
Yeah, real pleasant lady.
to put a picture with the book and the poems that Keith wrote about her on a
Mm.
regular basis. And actually, one thing about you, you have over 600 comedies that you did. How much?
650 sitcoms, yeah.
Wow, that says a lot about you. I can't wait to see when you do your biopic.
My biopic, indeed.
You need to do that. All right, we're going to read an excerpt from the Prince of the Garden by Keith Richmond. Return to Eden. The Eden of my life is you. The feelings in my heart are true. To every moment we've shared, there's nothing that can be compared. This point in time is filled with grace. Every moment of the wonder place that lived insides that lived and lives inside us now, and how we claim to heal will show us how. The return to Eden is the place we will be, and it's all sounds and colors I again will see. Return to Eden by Keith Richmond. So
Very
he's
good.
well, I'm consistently trying to work on reading out loud these poems so they that I can get them to flow right because I felt like they're so beautiful. I want to make sure I depict them the right way. If that makes sense. Um, I want to say thank you so much. Joel, you have just an incredible career. Your career is just has taken you through so many different avenues, and you've met so many incredible people. And I know you've like to help. If there are any writers out there that have a project, what would you suggest? I had a friend of mine. I spoke about you, and she said I asked her how does she protect her writing style or her writing works before she sends them in to a platform. Where would you suggest?
Well, you can I forget what the term is, but you can register a script so that the ideas and all the words in the script are your own and your property. So somebody can't just simply, and those things have to be done with the Writers Guild. It's the
Writers
Writers
Guild.
Guild of America, and you have to do that, and that's the first thing you must do with a piece of writing that you're going to be sending off to anybody. You must
Perfect.
protect the piece of writing,
So you've
and then
heard
it's
it, ladies and gentlemen. You have to protect your piece of writing because people, we have people that have gone to the networks and they say they had a project, and all of a sudden their project was their project, but it got twisted a little bit, and that project became somebody else's project. So when I was talking to someone, I said, when I talk to Joel, I'm going to ask him. So thank you so much. Is there any other questions you have for us? This is You're hanging out with the Carters. Thank you for doing this very special session with us and hanging out with Wills and I. But Wills is actually just hanging, watching traffic and people, and enjoying his
So why
sunshine
did
glasses.
you feel like you got to beat up on me again?
Well, I'm looking at your sunglasses. Your sunglasses look like you're just enjoying the weather.
Well,
Yes.
actually, it got a little chilly out here. The sun has started to, get that sea breeze as we usually get about this time of day.
Hmm. So,
Well,
so
I
you'll,
tell you, go ahead.
well, he's gonna have to head indoors pretty quickly, I would think. As soon as this is over, he can go.
Oh
Yes,
yeah,
bye,
heck
Wills. You
yeah!
can
I'm
go.
going to go wrap up and get warm.
Yes. Well, Joel, thank you so much. I'm going to, as soon as once I click it, I'm going to make sure it's all seamless. I'm not moving from this spot. Make sure this recording is correct. Then I'll clean it up a little bit, and we'll go from there. And then
You
I'll
got
get
it.
it to you. I'm thankful. This will be, I will put this on Hanging Out with the Carters on YouTube and share it with the folks that watch Hanging Out with the Carters that want to be engaged with some of these wonderful ideas that I keep coming up with. Wills keeps asking me, you just keep doing. And you know what? It reminds me of
There you
something
go.
that
There
he
you
said.
go.
This is what he said. Just live in the moment and get out of your own way.
There you go. Whoa, okay. I buy that a lot. I buy that a lot because living in the moment will get you much further than any other choice you can make.
You are absolutely right. And I'm going to continue to live in the moment. You are hanging out with the Carters. We are honored and so extremely blessed to have an opportunity to hang out with Joel Zwick, who is one of the most amazing directors, producers of our time. And let me tell you, he's got a huge um, collections of works that he's been involved with. And I'm just so honored to have an opportunity to sit down with you and hang out with the Carters. And thanks, Joel. I appreciate it.
Well,
When I
good.
finish my script, I'm definitely gonna make sure I get it. I wrote it down. I'm gonna get it
WGA.
registered. Yes, registered with the Writers Guild, and I'll send it to you and see if you think it's funny.
There you go. You
All
got a
right.
deal.
All right. Hanging Out with the Carters is a podcast. You can find us wherever you get your podcast, which is on Instagram, a piece of it, on Apple, on Spotify. And I'm just excited that we're here. We're on Spreaker as well. And y'all keep listening.